Canto 1, Chapter 15, Text 31. Please repeat after me. Vishoko Brahma Sampatya
विशोको ब्रह्म संपत्त्या
Sanchina Dvaita Samshaya
संचिन्न द्वैत संशया
Leena Prakriti Nirgunyad
लीन प्रकृति नैर्गुण्यात्
Alingatvada Sambhava
अलिङ्गत्वात् असम्भवात्
Vishoko Brahma Sampatya
विशोको ब्रह्म संपत्त्या
Sanchina Dvaita Samshaya
संचिन्न द्वैत संशया
Leena Prakriti Nirgunyad
लीन प्रकृति नैर्गुण्यात्
Alingatvada Sambhava
अलिङ्गत्वात् असम्भवात्
Vishoko Brahma Sampatya
विशोको ब्रह्म संपत्त्या
Sanchina Dvaita Samshaya
संचिन्न द्वैत संशया
Leena Prakriti Nirgunyad
लीन प्रकृति नैर्गुण्यात्
Alingatvada Sambhava
अलिङ्गत्वात् संभवा विशोको ब्रह्म संपत्त्या
Vishoko Brahma Sampatya
संचिन्न द्वैत संशया
Sanchina Dvaita Samshaya
लीन प्रकृति नैर्गुण्यात्
Leena Prakriti Nirgunyad
अलिङ्गत्वात् संभवा
Alingatvada Sambhava. Word for word and translation for by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
जय
Vishoka,
विशोको
free from bereavement.
free from bereavement
Brahma Sampatya,
ब्रह्म संपत्त्या
by possession of spiritual assets.
by possession of spiritual assets
Sanchina,
संचिन्न
being completely cut off.
being completely cut off
Dvaita Samshaya,
द्वैत संशय
from the doubts of relativity.
from the doubts of relativity
Leena,
लीन
merged in.
merged in
Prakriti,
प्रकृति
material nature.
material nature
Nirgunyat,
नैर्गुण्यात्
due to being in transcendence.
due to being in transcendence
Alingatvat,
अलिङ्गत्वात्
because of being devoid of a material body.
because of being devoid of a material body
Asambhava,
असम्भवः
free from birth and death.
free from birth and death
Translation: because of his possessing spiritual assets, the doubts of duality were completely cut off. Thus, he was freed from the three modes of material nature and placed in transcendence. There was no longer any chance of his becoming entangled in birth and death, for he was freed from material form. Quote, doubts of duality begin from the misconception of the material body, which is accepted as the self by less intelligent persons. The most foolish part of our ignorance is our identifying this material body with the self. Everything in relation with the body is ignorantly accepted as our own. Doubts due to misconceptions of myself and mine, in other words, my body, my relatives, my property, my wife, my children, my wealth, my country, my community, and hundreds and thousands of similar illusory contemplations cause bewilderment for the conditioned soul. By assimilating the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, one is sure to be released from such bewilderment because real knowledge is knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudev, Lord Krishna, is everything, including one's self. Everything is a manifestation of his potency as part and parcel. The potency and the potent are non-different. So the conception of duality is at once mitigated by attainment of perfect knowledge. As soon as Arjuna took up the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, expert as he was, he could at once eradicate the material conception of Lord Krishna, his eternal friend. He could realize that the Lord was still present before him by his instruction, by his form, by his pastimes, by his qualities, and everything else related to him. He could realize that Lord Krishna, his friend, was still present before him by his transcendental presence in different non dual energies. And there was no question of attainment of the association of the Lord by another change of body under the influence of time and space. By attainment of absolute knowledge, one can be in association with the Lord constantly, even in this present life, simply by hearing, chanting, thinking of, and worshipping the Supreme Lord. One can see him, one can feel his presence even in this present life simply by understanding the Advaigyan Lord or the Absolute Lord through the process of devotional service, which begins with hearing about him. Excuse me. Lord Chaitanya says that simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can at once wash off the dust on the mirror of pure consciousness. And as soon as the dust is removed, one is at once freed from all material conditions. To become free from material conditions means to liberate the soul. As soon as one is, therefore, situated in absolute knowledge, his material conception of life is removed, or he emerges from a false conception of life. Thus, the function of the pure soul is revived in spiritual realization. This practical realization of the living being is made possible due to his becoming free from the reaction of the three modes of material nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. By the grace of the Lord, a pure devotee is at once raised to the place of the Absolute, and there is no chance of the devotee's becoming materially entangled again in conditioned life. One is not able to feel the presence of the Lord in all circumstances until one is endowed with the required transcendental vision made possible by devotional service prescribed in the revealed scriptures. Arjuna had attained this stage long before on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and when he apparently felt the absence of the Lord, he at once took shelter of the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, and thus again he was placed in his original position. This is the position of Vishoka, or the stage of being freed from all grief and anxieties. ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, Shal Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Devapu. Thank you for giving your valuable time and association. So, yeah, Vanchakalpitruvyasya Vibhasundudev Jagaditanam Bhavani Vivashnu. I seek your blessings so that I can speak on Srimad Bhagavatam following the mode of Guru Parampara. So, we are seeing in this chapter, Arjuna was very grief-stricken and anxious because of the departure of Lord Krishna. And in the last few verses, we saw that how he is remembering the instructions of Lord Krishna given on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he is able to pacify himself. His material contamination went away, the trash in his thoughts subsided, and he's able to revive his original position. He's able to feel peaceful. So I will like to read last couple of translations for you. Yeah, so Arjuna is saying, now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead Govinda because they are impregnated with the instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. Sutta Goswami said, thus being deeply absorbed in thinking of the instructions of the Lord which were imparted in the great intimacy of friendship and in thinking of his lotus feet, Arjuna's mind became pacified and free from all material contamination. Arjuna's constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna rapidly increased his devotion, and as a result, all the trash in his thoughts subsided, Because of the Lord's pastimes and activities, and because of his absence, it appeared that Arjuna forgot the instructions left by the personality of Godhead. But factually, this was not the case, and again he became the Lord of his senses. Because of his possessing spiritual assets, the doubts of duality were completely cut off. Thus, he was freed from the three modes of material nature and placed in transcendence. There was no longer any chance of his becoming entangled in birth and death, for he was freed from material form. So we can see how Arjuna is first recollecting his memory. He has already heard Bhagavad Gita. First of all, he recollected the instructions. Let me focus on the instructions given by Krishna because they are impregnated with uh, the instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. And then he's thinking about those instructions. He's constantly remembering the lotus feet of Krishna. And that's how he became the lord of his senses. So Vijay Prabhu said in his class that one should develop attachment to Krishna. We cannot remain detached from this. We cannot just remain detached. We need to have some attachment. So we detach from the material world and we attach to Krishna. That is complete success. And then also it was mentioned that doubts of duality. So this is one of the favorite shlokas of Vijay Prabhu, chapter 5, text 25. Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Vishayashin Kalmasha Chinna Dvaida Yatatmana Sarva Bhuta Hite Rata. So in this, do you have the translation? Do you have 525 Bhagavad Gita?
Yes. Those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme.
Yeah, thank you. So as Vishal Prabhu also mentioned in the last class, that one has to become a intense hearer, then we can get rid of this material contamination. So the same thing this verse is saying, when one performs intense devotional service, then one can rise above the dualities which arise from doubts. Or he in this text 31, Prabhupada is saying doubts of duality. In 525, it is said duality that arise from doubts. So it's similar that we have this material body. Because of the material body, we have connection with our family, with our wealth, with our country, community, and relatives. So that is called duality. So now my interest is different from somebody else's interest because my focus is my body, and anything related to my body, it's my interest. In they have this home ministry or uh, ministry for foreign affairs, because they have a particular interest in the country, and anything that is against that interest, that's foreign to them. So they have to make sure that their country's personal interests are being fulfilled. That's why so many countries come together and try to find that center in United Nations. But it is hard to do it because everybody is identifying with my country. This is my interest. This is my interest. So it is not possible to get a the sense, yeah, consensus and get a common solution, because everybody has their personal interests. So this is called duality, and because of that there are so many doubts. How can I benefit my own self? How can I benefit the country? How can I benefit the family? So in our priority list we have our personal health, we have our finances, we have our family. This, we need to balance all of that. So although all of it is centered around this body, but as soon as a person understands that I'm not this body, I'm spirit soul, then his interest is for what is Krishna's interest. Then he does his duty. He doesn't become irresponsible, but he does it as a responsible devotee, because a devotee does not mean that he gives up his duty to his relatives or his fan body. He still takes care of the body, but he sees the body as a temple of Krishna. He sees the relatives as Krishna's devotees or Krishna's part and parcels. So he also sees the entire world as the family of Krishna. So he's still doing his duty, but the perception, the reason, the motivation is different. So now he wants to benefit the entire world. He wants to even benefit the jivas, the animals. He doesn't want to harm anybody unnecessarily. So that's what it means by freedom from the doubts of duality. So, when Prabhupada came to the West, he gave Krishna consciousness to everybody. But many people might have some kind of averse attitude towards foreigners because, Britishers took over India. But Prabhupada did not have that for anybody, because Prabhupada was seeing on the platform of the soul. He was not seeing on the platform of the dress. There was this famous interview when Prabhupada went to England. The reporter asked Prabhupada, why have you come to England? And Prabhupada said, you Britishers, you looted everything. You looted all the valuable jewels, but you forgot to take the most valuable thing. That is the spiritual knowledge. So I have come to give that also to you. So such a person can see that he doesn't differentiate. He doesn't see his personal interest based on the body. That's why it is international society for Krishna consciousness. It is not Indian society for Krishna consciousness or American society for Krishna consciousness. So how does this duality begins? It's given in Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, with 8 teachings of Rishabdev, that Pumsa Striya Mithuni Bhavametam Tayor Mitho Hridaya Granthi Mahu Atto Griha Kshetra Sutapta Vittir Janasya Moho Yam Aham Mameti. This is 5 by 8. The translation. Yeah.
The attraction between male and female is a basic principle of material existence. On the basis of this misconception, which ties together the hearts of the male and female, one becomes attracted to his body, home, property, children, relatives, and wealth. In this way, one increases life's illusions and thinks in terms of I and mine.
Yeah. So it begins with the attraction between male and female. So we understand that sex desire is the main reason why we are here. It is a desire to dominate over the material nature. The sex desire means I want to enjoy the material nature. And in order to enjoy material nature, I need to have a body, because material nature consists of material elements. So I want to have the sense of proprietorship, and I want to have the sense of, Krishna says 3 things in Bhagavad Gita, 5th chapter, and last verse. He says, Bhoktaram Sarva Bhoktaram Sarvatapsam Bhoktaram Yajna Tapsam Sarva Loka Maheshwaram Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam Yatvam Mam Shantim Richati. What is the translation to 529? I think that's the last verse of chapter 5.
Roughly I know the translation, but a person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries.
Yeah, so first thing is bhokta, which is beneficiary. So I want to be the beneficiary of everything. I want to be the beneficiary of my parents' inheritance, of the parents' love, or for my spouse, for my relatives. I want to be the beneficiary. Then Bhuktaram Yagnatapsam, Sarvalok Maheshwaram. Maheshwaram is the proprietor. And
Mhm.
I want to be the proprietor of a house of the family. I want to be the leader. And then he says, Suhridam Sarvbhutanam. I want to become the well-wisher of everybody. First I want to enjoy and I want to be the proprietor. Then I want to do some social work because I want to make sure that people know me as a well-wisher of everybody. So these are actually the positions of Krishna to receive service from others, which is beneficiary, to be proprietor for entire everything, and to offer benefits to others, well-wisher as a well-wisher. That only Krishna can do, but I think I want to do it. So in order to do that, I come in the material world with this material body, and then I get attracted to a male or a female. So then I enjoy the material senses. Then I create this entire um, things which we discussed, right? Uh, what was the translation for this? Griha. We have a wife or a husband. Then they buy a house. Then they have land. Land also is similar to work. I mean, land for food grains, or you go to your job. That is similar. So and then there is Sutta, sons. Apta means relatives. Vitta is wealth. So all this comes, and then I think that okay, I am the beneficiary, I am the proprietor, and I am the well-wisher of all of these. So such a person is entangled between all of these, and he cannot see his ultimate self-interest. Such a person is known as Jiva. Jiva means a conditioned being. But a person who understands that I am not this body, I am this soul, he is known as Brahma Bhuta. He is not a Jiva Bhuta. So in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 54 says the symptoms of Brahma Bhuta. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na Shochyati na Kamshati. So a person who is at the level of Brahman, he is always happy, Prasannatma. So always happy. Na Shochati, he has no lamentation. Na Kankshati, he has no hankering. But on the other hand, Jiva Bhuta, he is always lamenting for what he could not achieve or what he lost. And he is hankering for something in the future. Shochati and Kankshati, that's the situation of a conditioned living being. So we can see Arjuna here, he was feeling this. Oh, Lord Krishna is not there. Now what will I do? He was my best friend. He was giving me all this power that through which I was ruling the entire world. Now he has left, so my power is also gone. How will things go on? So he was feeling this lamentation and hankering. He was lamenting for Krishna's departure and hankering for uh, his and then getting his strength back, hopefully. But now he realized that Krishna's instructions are non-different from Krishna. So he again became the controller of his senses. He again became the lord of his senses. He's satisfied. All the contamination in his mind is gone away. So just like Arjuna can feel this presence of Krishna by remembering him, by worshipping him. Prabhupada says this, how can we do this? We can also do it. By attainment of absolute knowledge, one can be in association with the Lord constantly, even in this present life, simply by hearing, chanting, thinking of, and worshipping the Supreme Lord. In the last verse, it was mentioned, Man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam evashyasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. That one should always think about Krishna. One should always become a devotee of Krishna. One should worship Krishna. One should offer obeisances to Krishna. Then one can go back to Krishna at the end of one's life. And Krishna says we should not doubt about this. That he is saying this truthfully, and because such a person is very dear to Krishna. Okay, so I also want to read the story of Narad Muni, because Narad Muni's story is something similar. Narad Muni received the knowledge from the Bhaktivedantas who were visiting his house. Narad Muni in his previous life was a son of a maid servant, and then he received the knowledge from um, four sages who were traveling, but due to the rainy season, they stopped at his house. He was a young boy, 5 years old maybe, and his mother, who was a maid servant, she hosted them. So Narad Muni heard this transcendental knowledge from these sages, and then they left at the end of the rainy season. So this story is given in this fifth or sixth chapter of first canto. Uh, so Vyasadeva asked Narad Muni, "How did you become Narad Muni?" So Narad Muni is recollecting his past life, the last day of Brahma. So after the great sages left, um, he he wanted to practice spiritual knowledge, but he was bound by the strong affection of his mother. He could not leave his mother, um, and his mother was dependent on him for protection. So he would serve his mother. His mother could not take care of him so nicely because she was dependent. She was just a maid servant. She did the best she could. So once upon a time when she was milking a cow, she was bit by a serpent and she left her body. And now an ordinary child would lament, and like the condition being that, oh, my mother, she was the only one. She was providing him all the food and care. But this Narad Muni, who was a boy, he is actually taking it as a mercy of Krishna. Why? Because he heard the instructions, the transcendental knowledge from these four sages. So then he could see it as a mercy of Krishna, and he left the world, left the house. He did the final rites. He set his cottage to fire. I think that's how he did the final rites for his mother. And then he goes to explore the north. He goes towards the north, towards the Himalayas, and he goes through various metropolises. He goes through various forests and ponds and lakes, and he sees the creation of Krishna. And at one place, he sat down after drinking water and he meditates as per the instructions given by the sages. And then Krishna, he appears on the lotus of his heart. And then every part of his body is enlivened. He's completely happy. And then Krishna disappears. So then he becomes very anxious and he tries to meditate again, but he is not able to see Krishna second time. And seeing this despondency and anxiety, Lord Krishna speaks in an unembodied voice. He says that in this lifetime you won't be able to see me because your service is not complete. But if you continue, then you can see me in the next life. So I have shown you just myself for a moment so that to increase your desire for hankering for me. In that life, Narad Muni traveled all over the world singing the glories of Krishna and thinking about Krishna. So at the end of his life, he passed away, and then in the next life, he was born along with Brahma as a son of Brahma, Narad Muni. So he was no longer entangled by the material body, and he could travel anywhere and everywhere. And he had the Veena instrument, which was surcharged with the sound of Krishna. It was gifted to him by Krishna. So this is how one revives one's spiritual body by following the instructions given to oneself from the spiritual master. So it's just like Arjuna revived his consciousness, he became pacified, satisfied, and he could feel the presence of Krishna in the same body. Similarly, we can also do it. At the end of this life, we get a spiritual body. Depends upon one's intensity of service. So this is the position of Vishoka, or the stage of being freed from all griefs and anxieties. Yeah, I will stop here. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Hare. Can ask any questions or reflections. Deva Prabhu online. Deva Prabhu, you have any reflections or questions? Is he's giving this pranams. Hare Krishna. Can't talk, he said. Can type. Do you have any reflection?
I want to share a reflection with you. You start off the class by saying that we may focus on just avoiding doing negative things like unsustainability, but the real growth comes from going towards the positive. So it's called Artha Prakriti. So if one only focuses on giving up their, let's say, and whatever impurities and contaminations they have, they only get so far. But if they can do Artha Prakriti and hold on to the feet of pure devotees or their mentors or Krishna himself, then all of the anarthas will automatically go away. All the contaminations, like Arjuna was trying he lost the fight with some cowherd men, and he thought his power was gone. He was trying to do it out of his own. Then he gave that up, and then he focused on the lotus feet of the Lord and remembered all of the past. Then he immediately regained everything. So he, instead of doing unsustainability, he did artha pravritti, and all his contaminations, whatever they said, trash, went away.
Yeah. So true. I think this is given in that purport of 525. You read through that purport 525. Gita.
Oh, Gita.
Gita 525. Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Rishyashin Kalmusha Chinna Dvaita Atmana Sarvabhuteta.
The purport. Only a person who is fully in Krishna consciousness can be said to be engaged in welfare work for all living entities. When a person is actually in the knowledge that Krishna is the fountainhead of everything, then when he acts in that spirit, he acts for everyone. The sufferings of humanity are due to forgetfulness of Krishna as the supreme enjoyer, the supreme proprietor, and the supreme friend. Therefore, to act to revive this consciousness within the entire human society is the highest welfare work. One cannot be engaged in such first-class welfare work without being liberated in the Supreme. A Krishna-conscious person has no doubt about the supremacy of Krishna. He has no doubt because he is completely freed from all sins. This is the state of divine love. A person engaged only in ministering to the physical welfare of human society cannot factually help anyone. Temporary relief of the external body and the mind is not satisfactory. The real cause of one's difficulties in the hard struggle for life may be found in one's forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Lord. When a man is fully Krishna conscious, when a man is fully conscious of his relationship with Krishna, he is actually a liberated soul, although he may be in the material tabernacle.
Yeah, so even though Arjuna was in his material body, he was still liberated. Jivan Mukta. So in this lifetime he practices, and then at the end of that life one gets a spiritual body like Narad Muni. We also saw the example of Raghunath Das Goswami in earlier when we are discussing Nityananda, Lord Nityananda's appearance day, and there was Raghunath Goswami disappearance day before that, disappearance day or appearance day. So we discussed how Raghunath Das Goswami was a family man, and by the mercy of Lord Nityananda, he was able to get rid of his family attachment or duties. Although he was, yeah, he had his wife, he had his parents, but because of his attraction to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, he could get free from all those. Atagriha Kshetra Sutapta Viktari Janasya Moho Yamamimiti. It is said that he had the opulence equal to Indra. So who would like to leave that, for a life of renown, the renounced order? Only one who has developed taste for serving Krishna. So I would like to read this to end up, already it's 8:16, but this is a by Kadam Kanan Maharaj. Kadam Kanan Maharaj, he took sannyas at the age of 44. Similarly, we know S.P. Keshav Maharaj, he took at the age of 42 or 41, I guess. Yeah. So I was so amazed to read this. So somebody asked this question from Maharaj. This is a blog article called The Mercy Factor. Kadam Kanan Swami's July 2009 Serbian Summer Camp Lecture. So maybe we can read this. This is 7 minutes read. Do you want to read Mercy Factor? Kadam Kanan Swami. I will read the question.
Okay.
I was thinking if I should ask this question. A confession goes along with it. I started Krishna consciousness 21 years ago, and in spite of all my deficiencies, devotees have been very nice to me. After many years, finally, I think I'm getting some taste and for hearing and chanting also. But I feel that I have hit a wall or a ceiling. Upon analyzing, I have discovered that I still have doubts which are preventing me from getting the real nectar in Krishna consciousness. Upon further analysis, to my horror, I have discovered that apparently I am not so happy with the idea that Krishna is controlling everything in my life. Even though I have begun to enjoy very much the association of devotees and the whole process of Krishna consciousness, I am constantly, no matter how hard I try, I'm hitting this wall which prevents me from going further. I would very much like to know why this is so. So, Maharaj, please tell me what is wrong. Kadam Kanan Maharaj answered.
It is a fact that we have to give up all sense of proprietorship. At one point, we just have to accept that nothing is ours. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells Sri Sanatana Goswami that even his own body was not his. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "You have surrendered unto me, therefore your body is my property." All we have to gradually come to this point when we say, all right, all your property, we have to let go of the tendency to control our own destiny to really say, okay, Krishna, whatever you want. Because whether we have that mood or not, it is anyway going to be like that. Krishna will do what he wants. So we are all struggling like that. Yesterday, I used the analogy of Krishna being in the inner chamber in our heart. We can think of our heart as a palace with many rooms. Slowly, we open more rooms and we have to turn all these rooms into temples. But as long as we have any ideas of wanting material things, that means that we still lock out some rooms from Krishna. That is where our obstacles are. Everyone has some barriers, otherwise, we will all be ecstatic prema bhaktas, rolling on the ground in ecstasy. So we may be struggling with these limits. We may bump into the walls that you described above. If we step by step, if we surrender more, if we try to accept whatever Krishna wants, still in subtle ways, we may have some personal agenda, but we minimize it more and more. Like in my case, I was a grihastha, but I did not have kids. It did not happen. Then, at one stage, I began to wonder, what are we going to do? Grow old together, hand in hand, bone in bone? I thought, what would the point be? So I began to develop the desire to take sannyas. I remember the ceremony at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, and I was sitting at the fire sacrifice. I had a moment of doubt. No, doubt is a sign of intelligence, Kapil Dev says. I had a moment of doubt. I was thinking, why am I doing this to myself? I'm 44 years old. This is relatively young. I could have waited 10 more years. Why do I want to do this now? Is it personal ambition, or is it really the desire to serve Krishna? Anyway, since I was sitting in the sacrifice, I just carried on with it. What do you do? Then, after I took sannyas, some television crew came and they immediately put the microphone under my nose and said, "Do you feel any different?" And I said, if you would ask that question to a man who just got married, what would he say? He would say, yes, I feel different now because I feel the weight of the responsibility. So I felt the weight of the responsibility there and then. So this is the way that we gradually try to increase our commitment. First, we make an external commitment, and then in order to survive that commitment, you have to fill it in. A sannyasi has to walk around with these heavy vows, such heavy vows, not to enjoy in this world, no sense gratification at all. It is quite strict. So then I could see, I will never survive this unless I really fill it in with some genuine attraction to Krishna. If we want to break out of a stagnated situation, then we must make a commitment that is greater than where we are now. It does not have to be sannyas, but the commitment in service to Krishna must increase. That commitment in service to Krishna will force us to also make a greater internal commitment. And if again we find a wall, then again we must make a fresh commitment which is even greater, which will force us to grow internally. It is in this way that we increase our surrender to Krishna and not so much by mental or intellectual adjustment. We cannot do it that way. We are just not strong enough. But if we make a commitment, that will force us. If we take responsibility, responsibility will force us. So when there is stagnation, make more commitment in the service of Krishna. It can be in different directions. It can be in sadhana, in practical service, it can be in ashram. It depends on our individual situation. Then in the end, if at the end of our life, if there are still such walls and we still have not become perfect, then there is this hope. It is called Ashabandha. It is translated as hope against hope. It basically means that even if there is no reason to have hope, you still have hope. We have no reason to think that we will be successful, that we will go back to Godhead, that we will get Krishna praying, because we have not yet surrendered enough. You know it, and I know it. We know it about ourselves, but we hope against hope that we may still get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, because if he sees that we are really trying, then he is very generous. So this is the crux. We have to really try, and if Lord Chaitanya sees that we are really trying, then he will give us mercy if he wants to. So this is my meditation. That is why I took sannyas. It is a risky business. Still, I hope that Lord Chaitanya at the end of my life will say, well, he tried. Everyone else will say, he did not do very well. It was not very impressive. Maybe it will be better for him to do it one more time. But someone will also say, this is one of Prabhupada's men. So I also want to be a Prabhupada man. Prabhupada has prayed to Krishna that we can go back to Godhead. So I try to serve Prabhupada. I hope that he will also help. Do you know the story about the horse race? The horse race is getting ready to start. Ladies and gentlemen, all the horses are lined up. Start, sign, and they are all running. And it is material desire that takes the lead. Envy and greed are close behind, and they are storming down the tracks, storming down the tracks. And it really looks like material desire is going to win the race. Number one, material desire is in the lead, in the lead. But then, look, 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 from behind the left field, there it is. Prabhupada's mercy. Prabhupada's mercy coming down the side. And yes, 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 Prabhupada's mercy is moving on. Prabhupada's mercy is, I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, Prabhupada's mercy is going to finish the race. Somehow or the other, hang in there.
जय जुलनेस कदम कानन महाराज की जय
Jai.
श्रील प्रभुपाद की
Jai.
ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय Jagadrupisha fast
His Grace Kautukarnav Prabhu ki jai.
We will have real class tomorrow by His Grace Vijay Kushal. Hare Krishna.